and today I'll be doing my takeover on the testing of Sita, ethics, purity, and divinity. So we'll just get started with an introduction or a summary. The testing of Sita by fire episode is after Hanuman finds Sita in Lanka, which is where she's being held captive by Ravana. But after the battle between Rama and Ravana, she is brought back to meet with her husband and Lakshman. But Rama has some reservations about whether she's been loyal to him because she's been in another man's household, and Sita is upset by this and offended even, and she decides that the best way to show her purity or innocence is to prove it through a trial by fire. And this episode is, of course, surrounded by a lot of controversy and debate, mostly because Rama did not try to stop Sita. In some versions, he's actively asking Lakshman to help put the trial together. In other versions, he just doesn't say much and allows it to happen. So we'll talk about that. The two primary versions discussed in the secondary readings for this week are Valmiki and Kamban, but I will be talking about Tulsidas' illusory Sita, just to add some context. So first, I do want to make some acknowledgments recognizing the mistreatment of Sita. Of course, this episode does show through the rejection of Sita double standards that have been revealed, and it does come back to the mistreatment of women at the hands of men, not just Sita's character, but other female characters in the story, as well as female readers who perhaps can relate to the injustice that they faced with their male counterparts. So something that I'd like to talk about, there is a link attached to this picture here that goes to a clip from the TV Ramayan that shows Lakshmana and Rama having a conversation in which Lakshmana declares that he treats Sita like a mother and he has a right to confront Rama about his decision to put Sita through a trial by fire. He's very worked up about it, and he even calls it at one point an attack on womanhood. But what this is meant to show, or another way to think about this video, is to recognize that maybe Lakshmana is a version of the readers or the viewers who are quick to point out the flaws in Rama's decision, but don't quite have all of the information needed to make that judgment. And in the clip, we see the idea of illusory Sita, where her shadow is kept in the real world, but she is sent off with the fire god, her true self. So it all boils down to Rama being an incomprehensible being because he truly is a god, and we can't really evaluate him by human standards. So the argument of this presentation is to offer a new perspective about Rama's divinity or godhood. Through this episode of Sita's testing by fire, it answers the question, who am I, for Rama? We discover that he has godly attributes, that Sita has godly attributes, and that he really needed all of these characters' actions. Sita becoming upset and putting herself through the trial, the hesitation of Lakshman. We needed all of these events to come together in a greater plan to show Rama, to shed light on his divinity. In the Shulman reading that we had for this week, he talks about a series of reintegrations, firstly between Rama and Sita, but then with Vishnu and Lakshmi, their godly counterparts. But finally, and what I want to talk about is Rama and his divine self, and how this reconciliation between the two, how he comes to recognize himself, how others come to see him, is wrapped up in this idea of anamnesis, which we'll talk about right now. Anamnesis, the divine hero who fails to remember that he is God, comes to know himself, at least for brief moments, through hearing, always from others, his story. This episode clearly depicts a anamnesis, and I have a few primary source excerpts to show how the different versions of the story have come to attack this question of anamnesis for Rama. The first is Valmiki, Brahma talking to Rama during the ordeal while it's going on. How can you, the creator of the entire universe, the most ancient one, and foremost among those possessing supreme knowledge, stand by and watch as Sita falls into the fire, eater of oblations? How can you not realize that you are the foremost among the hosts of the gods? You are the ancient God and supreme spirit. Those who are devoted to you and those men who praise you will never fail in any way. This is a significant part, especially because we know that the earlier versions, including Valmiki's version, don't make Rama's divinity as explicit as later versions, such as Kamban's. So to have this episode where Brahma clearly comes to Ram and tells him, you are the Supreme Spirit, it's revealing something to the audience, it's revealing something to Rama about himself, and it's revealing something even to Valmiki. And we'll move to Tulsidas in Ramcharitmanas, who writes, her shadow and the stain of public shame were burnt up in the blazing fire. None understood the action of the Lord. In the heavens, the gods, adepts, and sages stood at gaze. Then fire in bodily form took the hand of the true Sita, famed in the scriptures and the world, and brought her and committed her to Rama's care, even as the ocean of milk committed Lakshmi to her lord. There's a lot going on in this passage, and one of them is the illusory Sita, her bodily form being different than the shadow form that is being burned in the fire. But there is also the explicit connections between Rama as a lord and Vishnu, and Sita as Lakshmi, Vishnu's partner and counterpart. So it's not a comparison between two separate beings, it's bringing them together and recognizing that they are one. So there are key transitions, shifts in tone. We see a different Rama, him transgressing the realms of human, king, warrior, and god. This epistemic intervention where the gods do come down and reveal something to him. It truly is a revelation type of moment, and we do see Rama changing from the hero warrior that we saw at the beginning into the god that he now is towards the end of the story. And the theme or the topic of anamnesis ties very nicely into this, where the episode was needed in order to relate to Rama and the audience, that this is a story about God. So here are some discussion questions that we can maybe talk about. First, in what ways are the variations of the Sita testing ordeal post facto rationalizations, as Schulman calls it, by the authors in order to emphasize or justify Rama's divinity? So this is something that's definitely been talked about in online forums with academics, in other readings that we've had for this class, and in our own class, where we wonder what has been changed in later versions of the Ramayana so that Rama is maybe depicted in a little bit of a better light or portrayed more as a godlike figure than as a human. And second, how are the episodes of Rama killing Vali and Sita being tested related? Is the way in which they differ tied to Rama's divinity? So there has been a comparison drawn between the killing of Vali and Sita being tested, because in those episodes, both Sita and Vali feel betrayed. They don't really understand what Rama's actions could mean, and they both offer some insight into how Rama transcends his confinement as an earthly being. So we'll think about these questions and how they compare and contrast. And third, how does the externalization of Rama's godhood change the way other characters or the readers expect him to act? So putting that divine consciousness into the outside world, the other characters hearing it, the readers reading it, viewers seeing it, how does all of that change the way that we might evaluate Rama's actions and not judge them by human standards, but understand that there is a greater dharmic plan in motion that is godly in nature. So I hope that this presentation helped you think about the episode a little bit differently and that you learned something from it. Thank you.